secondary writing classes specifically, more so than high school. That's listed as well on the manual. So the problem, starting out with the problem, what I realized in my classes when I was teaching composition at Guilford Tech was that I would have learners from all over the world, different regions, and they wrote totally different styles. And so I looked sort of into rhetoric, and that's when I came across the theory of contrastive rhetoric. I also saw it in a couple of my classes with the program. And so I dug deeper into contrastive rhetoric because I want to find out just what the expectations were with regards to rhetoric in the post-secondary composition field. And is discourse-centered rhetoric good enough to teach? And I'll go into what that means here in a minute. And with English language learner composition, is linguistic relativity addressed? Do teachers mold English language learners into standard American English writers? All right, before we go on there, I've already raised a bunch of terms. We're going to define some of the terms. First and foremost, ESL. This is English as a second language, or it's also known sometimes as English as a subsequent language now. English language learner, ELL. What is rhetoric? Well, as far as my presentation goes, rhetoric, I'm using it as the overarching organizational patterns in writing. And what patterns are used to achieve a purpose. Discourse is verbal communication. So discourse-centered rhetoric would be rhetoric that reflects discourse, spoken word. Culture, this is obviously a difficult word to define, but I'm using it as the beliefs and customs of a group of people. Their art, their history, their literature, what they believe in, what they value. So what is intercultural or cross-cultural? This means between cultures, not among cultures, but between cultures. SAE is an abbreviation for Standard American English. And of course there is no one rhetoric, but there's an overarching term that means, just Standard American English. Ethnocentrism is an old sociological term that means not valuing the culture of others. Ethnolinguicism was adapted as a term to mean not valuing the languages of others. Ethno-relativism, and I'll go into these more, but it was a term to describe empathy for other cultures and valuing other languages. ESP, English for specific purposes. And then I'll be using these terms, some native text and new text. Native text is simply referring to the text that was existent or extant before their study, before whatever study took place. And then a new text is the term that I will use for a text that's being done for the purposes of the study. One more term that I'll refer to some is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and this is the same thing as linguistic relativity, basically. A scholar by the name of Edward Sapir came up in the 19th century and sort of discussed this term, linguistic relativity. His student and protege, Benjamin Whorf, then codified the theory of linguistic relativity. And he basically came up with that terminology because he said it reminded him of Einstein's theory of relativity, of physical relativity. There were two versions of this theory, which was that the strong version is that language determines thought. So whatever language you're brought up speaking will actually determine the way you think about things. And the weaker version is that language does not determine thought, but it does have an influence on thought. So a scholar by the name of Robert B. Kaplan, a linguist, took the ideas of Sapir and Whorf, and came up with what he called contrastive rhetoric in the mid-1960s in this seminal work, Cultural Thought Patterns of Intercultural Education. And I've given you just a screenshot of the beginning of his seminal work, and I wanted to show you the quote, just of how it started out. The teaching of reading and composition to foreign students does differ from the teaching of reading and composition to American students. I think everybody in the program has realized apply the key to the difference in teaching approach. So this was a little bit of a different step. That culture is the key. Cultural differences. These were the diagrams that Robert Kaplan came up with when looking at the students' writing samples that were in his class. So it's a very small sample size. It's very informal, very anecdotal. But these were the diagrams that he came up with. And you can see that he separated cultural rhetorics into 5 categories: English, Semitic, Oriental, Romance, and Russian. Obviously, I mean, some of you are probably already thinking that there's problems with this because these are very broad categories, and is this really fair to lump people in these huge categories? And these were some of the problems that came up with that the scholars came up with very quickly. Mohan and Lowe came up with one of the most often sourced rebuttals of Robert Kaplan, 1985, and there were a couple problems that Mohan and Lowe pointed out. Here's a quote. One of the important quotes from their work is, "The source of these differences does not lie in a preference for indirectness in the language and culture of Chinese. Rather, it lies in the emphasis of the English language instruction programs to which students are exposed. Teachers in Hong Kong emphasize sentence correctness and pay less attention to organization and writing." And so, what Mohan and Lowe attributed the cultural, they said, yes, there are cultural differences, but it comes from teaching programs. So that was one of their rebuttals. And the other rebuttal they had was lack of empirical evidence. This was just a small sample size. A couple of other problems some of you might have already thought of. Ilana Leakey came along a few years later. She is the co-founder of the Journal of Second Language Writing. And she brings up the problem of ethnocentrism. And she uses the term ethnolinguicism to refer to lack of empathy for other languages and cultures. And another problem she brings up is that Kaplan's findings were, quote, wholeheartedly embraced in many ESL writing classes, which actually taught that English speakers think in a straight line while Asians think in circles and others think in zigzags. So, this was one of her main problems with Kaplan's work. And again, the terms here, ethnocentrism, ethnolinguicism. The answer to this came from Paul O'Connor, who is a very prominent scholar in the field of contrastive rhetoric. The book referenced here on the screen is her 1996 work titled appropriately Contrastive Rhetoric. And she came up with the term ethno-relativism in the book, or she used the term frequently to describe what she would see as, well, look, if learners are trying to come in and learn English, then they need to understand the rhetorical patterns that they're going to be using after they leave the classroom. So let's find a way to have empathy for their languages and for their cultures and still move them towards an American form of rhetoric. So this was her answer, and she details an expansive, comprehensive chronology of literature with regards to contrastive rhetoric in this book. Okay, evidence that supports contrastive rhetoric as far as studies go, this is the one that really struck me as being powerful, and that's the Tafkakonis, Wynn and Chan article from 2011. So this is a recent study, and this took 3 different groups: Chinese speakers, native Chinese speakers, native Hispanic, people from Hispanic cultures, and then American writers. And they all composed new texts. And the amazing thing about it was that each cohort sort of preferred writing that came out of their own group. They all wrote in English. That's the key there. I missed that. They all wrote in English. And English speakers preferred text written by other native English speakers. But Chinese speakers who were writing in English preferred other Chinese students who were writing in English. So that was sort of the key that really hit me, like, they really didn't prefer the patterns that they write with. But as far as the bigger studies go, the 2 major studies came from Purves and Fiber. The United Nations commissioned a huge study in 86, and it took a couple years to get everything ready. But the IEA, International Educational Achievement Assessment, was conducted by the United Nations across 14 countries and 5 continents. Huge study, 20,000 essays. And the conclusion for some was that there were rhetorical communities, and this was disputed by some scholars. The study was so huge that some people saw different things in the data. And I go into that some of the thesis, but some people saw different things. Some said there weren't really any patterns. Douglas Biber, conducted a study at the same time. He knew that the United Nations study was going on, and he saw problems with it, so he conducted his own survey. It was the first computerized study, and he used many genres. He separated the writing into genres. There were 23 specific genres that he used, 9 overarching genres. And his conclusion was that the data does show distinctions. And then Paul Lux, out of Arizona State, who was gracious enough to send me his unpublished dissertation that was sourced a lot. It came up a lot in the sources. He studied Ecuadorian and English writers and then found well-defined rhetorical differences. So after reviewing the literature, I had these driving questions: as a teacher, how can I guide my writers to writing for their specific purpose, so that when they leave my classroom, they're able to address their audience appropriately? What type of strategies can promote implicit learning of standard American English? In other words, so I'm not forcing and saying, like, you come from this culture, so I need to teach you this way. Moving all the different cultural rhetorics towards, what the expectations they will be seeing after they leave the classroom. And this is what I came to find, is that there are three best methods, 3 best practices that the teachers can use to move students towards American academic English, and that was the genre-based approach, creating a collaborative classroom there are a couple ways that I talked about doing that, and then employing think-aloud protocols. These strategies are designed to foster implicit learning through metacognition, using the metacognitive strategy to get these students to think about purpose and audience in a clearer way. So my product, what I decided to design based on my research was a website design. And the website design has 3 major features. One of them is the notable scholars page. So I go into do bios. So it shows the audience chronology with pictures and with different types of media. It shows them how the literature sort of progressed. And there's a comprehensive bibliography with full text articles linked in blue. And then there are 3 pedagogical approaches pages with each of the 3 methods that I've just mentioned. And each page has materials designed to address contrastive rhetoric. I'll go into that more in a second. For now, here are my references, the 8 that I referred to in the presentation just now. And then finally, hopefully this will work, is the website. So this is what it looks like. You can scroll down. This comes from Connor. This is the modern diagram that she used based on many different studies. Each of these authors that you see has their own page. Douglas Biber, for example, if you click on one, it shows his page. So that's a picture of Douglas Biber. And just what I was telling you a moment ago as far as he did computerized corpus-based discourse analysis of natural text, or as I called them earlier, native text. Biber broke down text into genres and created a computer analysis of these genres. All right, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this. What you will see is that each of the books contains a link as well. This one, if you click on it, is a link to the on-course book written by Biber and also the man who spoke here last year, Stephen Krashen. Each of the authors has a contact link with their email address. So that pops up with their email. And this is just a video. Every author page is a little bit different. This is a video where Doug Biber actually talks about.
Hi, Doug Biber. Northern Arizona University for a linguistics program. I got into teaching by doing an adult education program in northern Kenya. Actually, was on.
That's it, just a really short video clip. And here's the picture of the comprehensive bibliography that I mentioned. Each of the blue sources is full text for free online, so that you don't have to have, like we do, the library subscription to get it. It just automatically pops up. And then some of the really important sources that I found that didn't have full text for free are also included here. Let me get into Think Aloud protocol. As I imagine there are going to be some questions about that. So let me address this specific style first. The Think Aloud protocol was really postulated first in the early 1970s by Janet Eme, who was one of the leading scholars who promoted process-based writing. One of the first to really promote it over the product-based writing, and she suggested Think Aloud protocols for writing classes. And what they are is basically, like it sounds, it involves the entire process. Like I mentioned earlier, the metacognitive approach is used, which incorporates the entire process of writing, the planning stages, as well as the early stages of formulation, and the assessing yourself as well as assessing your peers, and then reformulating, revising, proofreading. And Emick said it's a good idea to actually go into the thought process of what are you thinking about while you're doing each of these steps, which is where the metacognitive approach really comes in, is understanding what you're thinking about, and that's what it means. That's what the term means. Thinking about thinking, or actually cognition about cognition is I think the exact meaning. She wrote the composing processes of 12th graders. Excuse me. And I've got a video, that demonstrates the process. Picture each one of these pedagogical solution pages has research that's dedicated exactly to this particular strategy. So Emick's books, of course, on here, as well as there's only one full text article. And then another source I used frequently in my thesis was the formatting came off wrong here, but Galerios, Murphy, and Manchin use of restructuring strategies, and that's all about the process-based writing using Think Aloud protocols. Also, each one of these pedagogical solutions has activities that are designed using the SIOP model, so they're not lesson plans, but they are sort of geared toward any teacher who wants to incorporate the activity can kind of slide it into a lesson plan. Because it has links to learning, how to build background, and then actually incorporation of new ideas. So, collaborative classroom, I mentioned earlier, has two different methods for achieving collaborative classrooms that I've noted here, which are peer review and interactive digital media. And I have some platforms of those media linked here. Peer review has been sort of hotly debated, but overall, in what I found it was a good way to really work towards the process, towards the proofreading stages, and harkening on that. Learners cooperate, share ideas, and read the work of their peers as they begin to learn from their own writing as well as those around them. And so each of the methods has different articles linked under the bibliography portion. And some of you will recognize some of these articles that you've read in classes. Interactive digital media. All I have really here is the link to the platforms. GitHub is really an interesting platform. What I did have before this was Etherpad, and some of you might remember Google Wave. Google made an open source page called Wave. box is where you're typing in, and each person that's in a group, like say you're doing 3 students to a group, each one can type something in, and it shows up in a different color. And so you can have them take turns, and like person A writes something that goes in towards their composition. The second person then goes in and can edit person A, and their edits show up with their, say the first one wrote in blue, the second will show up in red, and the red will strike out what they delete from the blue, if that makes sense. And then like person C comes in yellow, and their color shows up. So what happens is you get this collaborative writing production, which Delarios, Murphy, and Manson talked about frequently, is this collaborative, this group production, so that each learner is held accountable to what they wrote because of their color showing up. But then again, the group is also held responsible for turning in a nice, polished, edited essay. So it's pretty cool. GitHub also does this. It's the same type of thing. That's what I was afraid would happen to the other one. GitHub.org, I think, is the link if you want to try it later. I've also put up wiki spaces. By the way, I have some links here as well to wiki spaces under the supplementary materials. And each of these are individually designed materials to address contrastive rhetoric in post-secondary ESL writing classrooms. So I have peer review forms, I have self-analysis that students can use after they've written something. They can self-analyze. I've got rubrics for first drafts, rubrics for final drafts, and this is a sample project that I've created that really takes into account the process, and a rubric for oral presentation. All of these are included. So for instance, if I was to click the peer review sheet 1, it would go to my wiki page, and then from there you can download the form. And these are the questions for the peer review. And again, this is what my big focus is the metacognitive approach, and trying to understand what your purpose and audience is when you're writing. And so I asked the students to think about what their purpose and audience is. Could the work be expanded somehow? What I'm asking them there is, could you send this as a newspaper article, or could I somehow turn this into a poem? How could I change this? If you're making an argument, are there logical flaws? I sort of like the other one better. Let me bring this up. I wanted the self-analysis. This is where I get students to think about their own writing. What's your main idea? Where is your thesis located? Is this well organized? Are there body paragraphs? Is there an introduction? And what are you assuming that your reader does not know? This is something I'm asking because it's like today I'm trying to assume that you don't know anything, right? But and I tell students to do that because when they see the teacher, they say, well, they already know this, so I'm not going to write it. Well, as a teacher, and this is what I tell them, as a teacher, that makes me think that you don't know it, even though I already know it. You need to explain it so that it proves to me that you know it. And so what are you assuming? What do you assume that your reader does not know? Should you assume this? That's something I'm asking them to think about. What kinds of specifics do you use to support your thesis? Do you have examples, expert quotes? Are there analogies used here? What are the supporting data that you're using? Are you satisfied? That's not the best question in there. And then 7's highlighted as the last question. How might you change this essay to address a new audience? Getting them to think about audience again, and then maybe even changing their audience. If they have one in mind earlier, they can change it to a new audience when they're editing. what I can do here is I'll take you to one of the activities. And then there are 15 of these unique, that I created. This one's called Creating Character Attributes. It has the materials that you'll need: Venn diagram, smartboard, and internet access, and the necessary text. But just to sum it up, this one I use a short video with Harry Potter actor Alan Rickman, who describes how he had to play his character. And it's about swaying the audience's perception through appearance. And it begs the question, why is Snape a good character? Which, he's dressed in black. He acts mean the whole time, but ultimately he's good. And why is that? And then, I have the links to experience and practicing new ideas. So again, the teacher can use this activity and incorporate it into the lesson plan. There are 15 of those. The goal of the product, just to wrap things up here, the goal of the product was really to sort of make this platform that could serve as a central hub eventually. Right now it's just the design, but eventually it could serve as a hub that not only researchers, students like we are, researchers of some kind that are coming in to look at the research, intercultural rhetoric, contrastive rhetoric, but also, of course, for teachers who want to find pedagogies that will support their different, culturally and linguistically diverse students. So that was the goal. I've learned a lot from researching this topic, and hopefully this will turn into something that will last for a long time. I want to thank everybody again. Thanks to all the instructors. I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate it. Questions?
I have a question. You did a great job, Graham. I'm going to take your butt past that part of yours.
Worth my time.
And your project applies so nicely to adult, young adult, and high school students. Do you feel like it can be adapted easily for younger children as well?
I don't think it would work quite as well, to be honest with you. I think it could. Some of the principles of it could be adapted, for understanding, maybe for Gardner's multiple intelligences, to some extent, for them to know, what kind of learner they are, and to sort of pull back and see the way they're doing things. Maybe that could be part of it. For writing exercises, not so much. I think that's why I threw high school in there as well, because I think at the high school level, I think a lot of English language learners are ready to understand, think about the ways that they shape words and shape paragraphs together. But I'm not so sure for the other students, to be honest with you.
Earlier in the presentation, you said that the linguistic theory of relativity actually links to Einstein's theory of relativity. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, what happened was that Benjamin Lee Whorf came around in the 30s and started writing, and he had looked at what Einstein said, and the theory of relativity came in many stages. Einstein published the first part of the theory, I think, in 1905, and then 1916 is when the major part of the theory of physical, what's it called, theory of physical relativity, and it's about how objects interact with each other, and mostly you think about it like on a planetary level, like objects correspond, each one pulls another one, but they're all different shapes, different sizes, so each one pulls one a certain amount or doesn't. But they all have to get along to make things work, make the galaxy go around and stay intact. So this is about, he saw it as, yeah, different people from different cultures are interacting. Some of the languages have more power. And, that's one of the reasons so many people want to learn English. Other languages exist, and a lot of them have a lot of power. Mandarin is spoken by more people than English, but a billion something, but in English, about 300 million. But that they all have to get along and sort of interact, and each one has a pull on the other. That's sort of how they play.
I just heard last night that Einstein described his theory of relativity at the time is that 2 hours in a beautiful woman feels like a minute, and 1 minute with your hand on a hot stove feels like 2 hours. So which one was this for you? That's 30 minutes.
A little bit of both, probably.
Good answer.
Yeah. So, Bruce?
You mentioned in your thesis, I think in your thesis slide, that the 3 strategies were linked or were fostered metacognition. How does that work exactly?
Yeah, each one of them is sort of, it's like we used to say about the multiple intelligences, like, there can be overlapping things, but, did I go past it?
Now,
But that, and I said it, that there was metacognition, but each is designed to foster the metacognitive, the implicit metacognition of the different expectations that they were going to see when they left the classroom, they left that classroom. And that is because, like say, genre-based approach is teaching, like Biber showed in his study, and like he suggested, that there should be many different genres that are viewed, and when writing these genres, you have to really think about how you're thinking. You're thinking about the process, thinking about the different type of rhetoric you need for each genre, and that's sort of why that one's related. The collaborative classroom, the digital media, peer review. In that case, you really have to interact, so you're actually learning from others while you're learning from yourself. And from your teacher, of course, to some extent. And then the think aloud protocol, you have to, that really is metacognitive more than the others probably, because you have to actually verbalize what you're thinking as you're thinking. It really forces you to use the metacognitive approach. Angela?
When I guest taught your advanced writing course at GTCC for 3 days, I used the peer review, and I also used the guidelines, some of the guidelines that you showed us. Some of the feedback I got from your students were, I'm not doing this, you're asking me to do your job. He's my friend, I don't want to look at his work and, all that sort of stuff. And for English language learners who are unfamiliar with group work or collaborative learning or peer review, I think you have to sort of ease them into it, convince them in some way. What are some of your techniques for doing that? When you get pushed back at doing peer review?
Yeah, I mean, that is tough. That's one of the things, that's been a process for me as a teacher in the last couple of years, trying to figure out ways, because like you said, they don't want to criticize, and they feel like they're not qualified to criticize. So it's all about building rapport, I think, early on in the year, and getting them to trust you, and the students to trust you, trust your judgment. And then, of course, if that doesn't work, count as a grade.
I just wanted to comment on that because I've used peer review with English language learners, and every single time you do it, you have to set up the rationale why you're doing it again,
Yes.
for exactly the reason you said. And
Oh, yeah.
and one thing is to use a sheet, like you said, don't just say what was good about it, but to ask specific questions.
Because I started doing that.
But ultimately, I told them that if the able to edit your own writing in the future and not
Yes.
always be expecting someone to look over your writing, because that will not
Yes.
be the case.
Great points, and absolutely, it's not easy, and you really do have to prompt them with specific questions, I think, and that's something I've grown to realize. Because, like I brought that up, and when the question came up, what did you like about your own writing? I said, that's not the best question, because you have to be more specific than that. You have to really ask them, what's wrong with your partner's.
Yeah, what part confused you the
Look.
most or something?
Yeah, exactly. It has to be specific as possible. Those are the best, those are the good tips and points there too.
All set? Well done. I think we'll take a couple minute break here, let people stretch a little bit, get something to drink. Check the Facebook. But let's try to get back here in the next 5 minutes, 7 minutes. All right.